And they're also a musical instrument. Hi guys, and welcome back to Spring Views. On today's video I want to talk to you guys about 3 tools that I think are underrated. I don't see them as often, but I still believe that they should be in everybody's toolbox. They're kind of old-fashioned. I still use mine to this day. I had to use these when I was learning to be a carpenter before my boss would allow me to use the power tools. The first one is a sliding bevel, also known as an angle finder. It's self-explanatory what it's for. It finds angles. I just find it's useful to get into awkward spaces. You can adjust it. It's got a little wing nut here, so you can adjust it in and out and create your angle. For example, sometimes what I would use it for is I would find the angle of something, I would hold this against my chop saw, and then I could set my blade to this angle, and then you have the perfect cut every time. Another use for this is if you have a small torpedo level and you want to find a perfectly straight cut, you can hold this and you can get your plumb line, set it plumb, tighten up your nut, and then you have that to cut your wood down on the ground. Let me know in the comments below if you still use one of these, and hopefully I'm not the only one. I know a lot of cabinet makers and that still use it, but on a job site it's also very useful. I don't see it as much these days. It's called a combination square. I know some people do still carry it more so than the sliding bevel, but these are very handy to have in your bag all the time, especially if you want to scribe something or mark something. You just set your distance. You just set your distance on this here, and you can use that to scribe, or if you have something marked out. For instance, recently I was installing some metal railing, and I wanted to set the distance of each bottom of the post, exact same distance. So the first one I did, I just held that against the wood, and then I held that against the bottom of my post, and then I just tightened the nut, and then I just used that same size. So when I put my railing handles, my top of my railings on, it was all just dead straight. Very handy. It's also got a tiny little bubble level in it there. To be honest, I don't use that much. I use it mostly for the adjustment and to set sizes. It does also come with a little scribing thing in the end, which is quite handy if you're working with metal, because pencil doesn't always mark metal as well. Let me know in the comments below if you still use one of these. Still a bunch of tools that I think are underrated and I don't see enough, but the list could go on. Everything nowadays I find you can buy ready-made for construction. Your doors already are hinged, they're already in the frame, you literally just put them in place. I think that the trade and the actual skill itself can be dying a little bit. I know it's more efficient for business and to make money, but it's still good to know how to do it. So if you're an apprentice, or you're someone that's already served your time but you still can't hang a door properly without buying it pre-made, then maybe something that you should add to your list of skills. And sometimes people will want you to install a solid wood door that hasn't had the hinges cut in it for you, and you're gonna have to do it yourself. I still sometimes use a chisel and a hammer to put in hinges as opposed to a router, just because I've done it so many times and I can do it just as quick as it takes me to set up my router and set up the jig to get the perfect cut. I've already done it with a chisel. What tools do you guys think are still underrated in today's age? What skills in construction do you think are dying, and what do you think we can do about it? I think it's important that we pass down these skills to the next generation. Now the final one, this is the one that I have been laughed at for taking out on a job site. I don't know why. I use it all the time. It's very handy. No, it's not as good as the battery powered ones, but it's called a handsaw. And if you can't use one of these properly, you shouldn't be working in construction. The first tool that I had to learn how to use properly was a handsaw. I had to cut things straight. I had to use my square to mark cuts, and then I would have to cut down the line, keeping it straight this way and this way. I don't know why people are so shocked when I bring it out. Yes, you can use your battery powered saws, and yes, they're faster, more efficient on a job site, but sometimes if you just want to cut one thing in an awkward space, for instance, I cut through some posts. I was taking the tops off of the posts, and instead of cutting from both sides, I only had this much left because my blade wasn't big enough. I would just finish the cut off with this. Sometimes if I'm cutting up against something I can't get my saw into, like if you're building up close to some siding, you can't get your power saw in because of the guard. If you have this, you can cut it. It takes 2 seconds. Also, I find this very useful for cutting small pieces of wood if you don't have your chop saw set up, because when you use your circular saw, sometimes your guard can catch in smaller pieces of wood and it's a pain, and this takes literally 2 seconds. By the time it takes someone to find the battery and get all set up to cut a tiny piece of wood, I've already cut it with this. And also some of the people that used to laugh at me would always ask if they could borrow this on site, and then recently I've actually seen some of them have their own now. Do you still use one of these? Can you cut a straight line with one of these? What do you think? Give me your honest opinion. Do you think that you should have one of these in your tote bag all the time? And they're also a musical instrument. Don't do that with your saws, it'll damage them. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give us a like, subscribe, and check some of our other videos out. We mostly do videos on tool reviews, product reviews, and just talking about construction and the trades in general. I hope you all have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.